Okay, so we're going to talk now about useful feedback, how to adjust, identify, adjust, move forward, how you get those results using your language.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just as a demonstration, and so just to point out, Marilyn and I like each other, and this is a role play, and that's all it is, and she knows what I'm going to do, so it's okay. But we want you to experience different ways of coaching someone to move them from one place to another, which is we do through feedback, right? Okay. So you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Marilyn, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100,
Okay.
and I want you to guess what the number is.
How many guesses do I get?
You get 3.
Oh, okay. 50.
50. Okay. I understand. Okay, maybe you didn't understand the rules, but it was, I mean, there's 0 to 100. Why would you think I would pick something right at 50? I mean, that kind of, okay, it's very amateurish, but you get 2 more guesses.
45.
45. Look, if it wasn't, okay, you know, there's a whole different range in there. 45, I can't even believe you'd guess something like 45.
Okay, 97.
97, oh, that's, you've ignored all the numbers in between. You've gone almost to 100. It's not even logical that I would think of a number that close to 100.
I'm about ready to punch him.
Right. Now, so
And it
what
wasn't helpful.
I've
All I do
done
is feel bad.
is I've been critical. No matter what she does, she's not going to be successful because I'm just going to, you know, I know what the number is. She doesn't. And I'm going to make her unsuccessful. And not, do you want more guesses?
No.
No.
I'm done.
Right. So that's one way that some people give feedback is just by criticism, okay? No chance of being successful. All right, so take 2, another way. Okay, Marilyn, I'm going to think of a number. In fact, I've got it now. Between 0 and 100, and you get 3 guesses to guess what it is.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Good.
35.
35. Now that is absolutely amazing. That it's kind of like splits the numbers. It's a good number. It's really a good guess. That's not the one I was thinking of, but it's really a good guess. So
75.
75. You know, that's 75 happens to be one of my favorite numbers. I mean, I don't know why. It's just 75 sounds good. It's a really good guess. It's not the right one, so you get another one.
69.
69. You know, that's another good guess. Just a little bit below 75. Good number.
Well, I liked, for me, my lucky numbers are 9s and 6s.
Oh,
I put
cool.
it together.
Nice. That's good. All right. It's not the right number. All right.
So I feel a little better, but it's still, I'm no closer to getting the right answer.
Right. So
So a lot of cheerleading sometimes doesn't help, right?
right. Okay. So now we're going to do, I mean, she feels good, like, oh, good guess, how smart you are and everything else, but she's no closer to getting it. Right? So now the next opportunity, another way to offer feedback. So I'm thinking of a number between 0 and 100, and I'd like you to guess what it is.
Okay, 55.
Lower.
25.
Lower.
10.
Higher.
18.
Lower.
13.
Higher.
16.
Higher.
17.
Good.
Okay.
All right. It took a little while, and it's obviously more than 3 guesses. But even Marilyn, yeah, she got there. It's a way of directing someone how to be successful. So there's the degrading, which unfortunately is too common. There's just the rah-rah, oh, aren't you nice and don't we love each other kind of thing. And then there's a way of helping her be successful in getting the number.
Yeah.
So those are 3 examples, and we're still friends, right?
Yes.
Because you did get it right.
Yes. Well, and I did this, I rarely do this outside of a training environment because I can set it up. But a little while ago I had a client that had been trained as a child to really be self-critical. Well, actually, people were critical of him, so he learned to be self-critical. and he wasn't quite getting it. So I did this exercise with him on just feedback, because it was about a boss. His presenting issue was about working with his boss, and he was the employee. And so we did this exercise, and he got it. He said, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing to myself. No wonder I can't make progress, right? So it's very rare. However, just as a training tool, this is good, but that's the whole idea for you to understand. We have to be authentic and honest and directive in order to build in success. And that's our sensory-based language. Right? So good, thanks. Thank you for that. And I have a story I'd like to tell you about feedback that I don't know if I'm going to tell it exactly factual. However, I've heard the story through the decades. Apparently it was an original story done with Gregory Bateson, who's an anthropologist. He was studying dolphins and how they were being trained and so on and so forth as an anthropologist, because they're so close to human behavior. So he spent most of his time watching them out in the training tanks. And what actually they would do is the dolphin would do something that was natural, normal dolphin behavior, and then the trainers would give some sort of signal to anchor or hook to that behavior, that trick. So it actually wasn't the trainers teaching the dolphins to do anything. It's just dolphin did dolphin, and then they blew a whistle. It meant that was cool. And then they would get a fish, a reward. And they did this they had 10 tricks I think they had trained by then. And one day the dolphin came out and they did 5 or 6 things they'd never seen dolphin do before. It became generative because they were so being encouraged.
It's like they got it.
They got it, yeah. The pattern was, oh, if I keep creating new things, I get more reward. So that was one part of the story about anchoring and feedback, right? And then one day, Gregory, the story goes, he was in the back in the holding tanks where the dolphin live and prepare. They're getting ready to come out and be trained. And there was a handler there who was just tossing fish into the dolphin tanks. And Gregory tapped him on the shoulder. He said, wait, stop. These are the dolphin that are going to go out and train in a few minutes. And if you give them all these fish, then they won't perform. And the trainer, in all of his wisdom, or the handler, he said, you don't really understand dolphin after all the time you've been here. He said, we used to think that too. It's sort of a natural classical conditioning thought that you have to reward and so on. He said, but we found if we didn't give the dolphin fish just because they're dolphin as a reward for being who they are, pretty soon they wouldn't perform out in their tank either. So there's that honoring of dolphin being dolphin, that I appreciate just who you are. Here's a fish.
Right.
And so Gregory, of course, he's one of the modelers for the field of neurolinguistics that took that into his human behavior then and said, oh, we need to honor somebody just for who they are, not because they do tricks. Right. So it's wonderful to get
tricks
a reward
are great.
For you win the sport thing, you make the accomplishment, you do the high hurdles, whatever it is, that's cool. You get the trophy. However, along the way, we need to be honored for just who you are. You make me smile when I see you.
Right. So when we look back at the strategic processing filters, the difference in task and relationship, that's a great balance.
Yes, right, good. So I hope you enjoy the story, and I'd like you to think about building your own repertoire of stories that have teaching points in them, and yet they're entertaining, and the right hemisphere will just get the story with much more memory or detail. I think I heard this story in about 1985. That's a long time ago to still remember that story. And I think it's been years since I've told it, so.
It's been a long time since I've heard it.
So just a little demonstration of the importance of giving appropriate, useful, timely feedback, right? So
in assisting individuals in achieving competency, offer sensory-based input on how to complete a task.
Right, rather than just do it is great advice. We want to say in our work, we teach just how.
Right.
Okay.
And then as a follow-up, ask for specific behavioral demonstrations of the skills necessary to perform at an accepted level of competency.
Okay, so all of that are there more slides for that? No, okay. So when you're doing that, in other words, if Al was doing something that I wanted to give him feedback on, I don't know, not your glasses, my glasses. Here, I'll teach you how to do the clicker.
Well, then that'll click back and forth.
I know,
That's
they're
fine.
good to see it. Okay.
Like this?
Okay, so let's say that he put his glasses on like that first time he's worn them, and I would say, oh, fix your glasses. That's not going to do it, right? Yeah. No, not that way. Okay, so that's not helpful. But if I'm going to say, okay, just put your glasses above the bridge of your nose. No, I didn't mean that. So I'm not being sensory specific. So if I demonstrate, let me show you exactly where they're most comfortable. I'll show you on me first. So you can idea that these two little things in here go across the middle of the bridge of your nose.
Oh,
Now for you it might be slightly different, but it would be in that general region.
okay.
Absolutely. Good.
I can read you better.
There. So I'm giving him not only my words, remember we said, is the more you can teach something in multiple systems, the more learning happens. So not just talking at him, I'm being in alignment with him and helping him, guide him, and giving him a behavioral demonstration, whatever it's about. And when we get into our presentation skills and group dynamics, we'll do more specifics about that. But the idea is you want to be able to be giving competency as well.
Right.
And then you're going to ask.
Sensory-based takes the judgment out of it.
Yeah. Like
Makes it
that.
safe.
Yeah. For me and for him. In other words,
Right.
instead of me going, oh, I can't do this, I'm not getting my point across, it's just, I need the words that describe the behavior.
Mhm.
One of the exercises we do, you might try this with a friend, is we have our people sit back to back, and they take a shoe that has a shoelace. And one person holds, like we're back to back, one person holds the shoe in their lap, and this person has to describe for me how to tie the shoe without any visuals. And it's hilarious to watch because we're trying, but if you really literally only do what you're told, it's pretty impossible to get that shoe tied. Some people have done it.
Well, some people
But
have
more
taken
liberties.
liberties
Yes.
with recall. If somebody has never seen a shoe or a shoelace before, and you try to teach them how to tie it verbally, you're probably not going. I've not seen sensory-based information
Well,
actually lead to it.
and that's when I first discovered there's more than one way to shoe tie. I have my way I was learned as a child. I thought that's the way you shoe tie. But there's another way that they call bunny ears, right? That works just as well.
Bunny ears?
Yeah, you make these two little ears in time and it works. There's a totally different strategy. So the resistance you have, if he's telling me what to do and I'm thinking shoe tie in my what I would call my traditional way, and he's thinking shoe tie in this other way, I'm going to presuppose and try to make it fit my way, and neither of us will be successful. So you want to really work on having your language support the action.
Right.
Yep. Okay. All right. So then we're going to go to.
Obviously, be respectful and offer specific feedback, and when appropriate, demonstrate the expected behavior, like Marilyn did with the glasses.
Yeah. So I might say something. Well, maybe you do this time.
Well, you can just use the glasses because we did
Okay.
it already.
All right.
So,
What I saw was when you first put them on, that they were here,
okay.
which is okay, except that you'd have to do this to see out of them, and I'm
Oh.
afraid that would hurt your neck. So if you really want to look through the glasses, what I'd offer is, if you put them at the bridge of your nose at the top,
Okay.
they would be successful on your eyes.
So she's saying what she saw, and then she's offering what she recommends as a more effective way.
Yeah. And remember that he has the option of trying it or not.
Yeah.
As a leader, I'm guiding, and that's
Right.
my job, right? Okay.
So always establish rapport.
Yeah. If you don't have rapport, it's going to be really difficult because people will be, especially if they're expecting feedback from you, they're going to maybe anticipate, oh, I'm going to be criticized or told what I'm doing wrong. So sometimes number two, once we get rapport.
So you give the positive feedback first, and having the individual or group consider what to do rather than what not to do.
Yes. And I find that it isn't buttering somebody up. It's not just finding something they did
Yeah,
right.
you don't. Honesty is a good.
It has to be authentic.
And hopefully you'll find something positive in how some. That was an amazing effort for your first try. Even if they did everything wrong, it's still a first try. It can be an amazing effort.
Right. Because sometimes people have given me feedback, it's been so valuable about what I did that they saw worked well or felt worked well from their perspective, and I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So now I had a tool that I knew, oh, that was effective. I could more consciously be aware of it and replicate that where needed. So the typical sentence might be, you've made a lot of progress in this skill, and now you're in a position to take the next step, whatever that might be, as you continue towards your larger goal.
Right.
Right. So you find ways of doing that. We call it that feedback sandwich. I'm sure you've heard of that before. However, it works when it's authentic.
Right.
Oh, there it is, feedback sandwich.
Right.
So you do the positive, you have a suggestion or an offer, and a positive. So in other words, I'm not telling this person what to do. That's never going to work. I'll get my finger bit off. But if I'm offering and saying, here's what might work better, would you be willing to try? I use my softeners in my language that's making it an offer out here, and then this person gets to try it on or not, their choice.
Right.
Right,
So I know this can feel frustrating the first couple of times. So I'm pacing the fact that I'm not saying it will, but it can. So it's possible for it to be frustrating. If I say, I know this is going to be frustrating, now I'm mind reading and I'm doing a negative embedded command.
what we call it stalling.
Right, and that's not usually, it's a thought virus to say that it will be, and that it's possible is based on more fact.
Yeah, or I might even give details and say, percentage-wise, when someone tries this the first time, they take a breath and try it again.
Mm-hmm.
So that it doesn't make them wrong for doing their best effort.
Now, you're not expected, it would be silly if you were to get this right the first time.
It's
So-
really highly unusual,
Right.
right? Good, okay. So when you do the pacing of the present state, and then if we're going to do a reframe, we make a meaning out of it. Remember, reframes were context or content. So I know this can feel frustrating the first couple of times, and that means that you're learning something new and making progress.
Mhm.
Okay. So some questions we might ask if someone's frustrated or they're not reaching their goal. One of the questions that's useful is, okay, where are you in the process of getting towards your goal? What steps are you
Well,
on?
if someone's frustrated, chances are that they're processing more through the right hemisphere, or emotions and frustration can live easier. And what you're doing, so what step are you on, tends to be a more linear left hemisphere axis. So you're helping them shift from one side to the other.
And if we think about what's presupposed in the language, we're saying there is a procedure, there is a step to be on, and maybe that person doesn't have steps, they're
And
just randomly trying.
You're
them.
getting your goal.
And it's possible to get your goal. And so if they don't have steps, or sometimes you hold up the manual and say, okay, so here's the directions, what step are you on? And they're going, oh, I haven't looked at the manual. And that happens, we just sort of launch into it.
How's that working?
Right. And then another way is to say, I'm curious, what would happen if, and then I might make my suggestion there.
But then it's just an offering out of her being curious. So
Yeah.
it's a softener, and it works for some people and doesn't for others.
And sometimes if someone is way off track, just asking the next one saying, well, so remind me again, what's your goal or what's your outcome?
Yeah.
And that can be done with curiosity. The other way is if someone has just attacked you, it's a good question to say, what was it you were wanting through doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Because it can be a boundary setter as well.
And then one way I saw this being done, and then how do you think it would work here? So,
Oh, okay. So he's going to demonstrate something.
so one way I saw someone wearing glasses, and they did it like this, and then they could read here and look out there, and so they could. So
Oh,
it's kind of like,
a dual
yeah.
vision.
I don't know if that would work for you, but it's something you might want to
So
try
then
or
I
not.
Then I could give it a shot. Like that?
Well, right.
Right, okay. And then one is, what I noticed was that we said already,
Which we just did
behavioral
basically.
demonstration, right? So that I am taking responsibility to not just, because otherwise I have to be accountable for the suggestions.
Right.
And if I'm doing some fluffy big thing that's not describable, then I'm not guiding this person.
Yeah, well, and I think by doing that, it makes someone a little more cautious about feedback, about complaining. Because if they're doing something and you don't know how to do it better, you probably don't have room to criticize.
Right. So we know that you'll be at different stages of areas where you're giving feedback, areas of responsibility and leadership. The more behavioral, outside in that surface structure levels, the little easier the feedback is. It's a little more difficult to get into their identity, into their value systems and beliefs until you get some practice with that.
And then 3 is identify the positive intent.
Remember that presupposition that says behind every behavior, thought, or feeling, there is a positive intention for the person doing the behavior.
Mhm.
The behavior might not work at all, but we've got to get behind and see what's really intended and preserve that.
And then the example is kind of what we've already been.
Yeah, I can sense your concern and effort to complete this part of the project, and I wonder what might happen if you, and then I would organize your notes or whatever it might be.
And then always use the perceptual positions of self, other, and observer in all situations where, of course, where it's useful.
Right, so on the slide. So we have this slide's in your manual. We have the position of self, so I'm taking care of my needs, my individual boundaries and wants and goals. I've developed this observer position that is neutral and good for giving feedback, again, about what's going on. And then my observer me can step into this other person and say, well, I can have compassion for what's going on. How is it they're behaving that way? What's going on in their map of the world?
So I might say, Marilyn, when I think about what your job is to do, what your goal is, it's like when I look at it from an objective viewpoint, I get this sense that if I step into your position, I get this, it's like my breathing stops a little bit. I get a little tight up here, and I that's really daunting. From what I might experience from if that was my job. And so when I look at it again, I say, maybe as in my position, if I was a little more patient, might make a difference. So in a sense, what I'm doing is I'm verbally demonstrating that when I look at it from a different perspective, and I kind of get a sense of what it might be for you, and then I'm coming back this direction again and say, from over here I can see that if that me were maybe a little more patient, it might make a difference. So
right. So it's a very useful tool, and we'll develop this further on into the training as well. So we're going to pause here. We'll be back in a moment.